Oh, to be young again, to wander the streets at your leisure after sneaking out from your parents, to pursue even an inch of freedom away from those who would control and manipulate your life, those people we call our parents. I think Call of the Night is especially interesting because we don't see parents. It's the whole point of the show. The story is about what freedom and choices an adolescent can make when they're allowed to do so in the privacy of their friends or peer pressuring classmates. Our main character, Ko, is just a typical guy. 14-year-old, I believe, right? Meanwhile, you have Nazuna, technically a very old vampire, but at her heart, she's still 16, 17, 18 years old. She pursues a life very similar to Ko, a life free of expectations and manipulations, and of course, full of as much fun as you can possibly attain on your own. But slowly, Ko and Nazuna begin a very fun relationship, a mutually beneficial friendship, if not perhaps something more. And it is at the height of this relationship that a character is introduced who is quite bizarre for any anime that I have ever watched. Anime are known for having very flashy and memorable villains. Villains who want to hurt people, villains who want to test the main character, villains who have all sorts of goals. And while Anko doesn't seem like your typical villain purely because she's pursuing vampires. Yes, this is a spoiler. Whatever. But her pursuit of vampires, while somewhat connected to Ko, her true threat to Ko is her knowledge of his nighttime activities. He's not doing anything illegal. He's just trying to find alone time. However, Anko will use all knowledge that she knows to pursue her goals, something that would be called admirable by a main character. But for a woman who is just getting in the main character's way simply by doing her job and by being somebody around 10 years older than him, if not older, she becomes the worst opponent for Ko imaginable. An unbreakable, undefeatable opponent. An adult. Ko has no desire to get into a great fight, a great argument. He wants an easy, fun life, as much as he can find one. And Anko, simply by being an adult and using just a tiny amount of effort, is able to completely crush his mental stability that he has been building the entire show. You could call her a psychological villain, but it would not be true. She is selfish, an adult using her power as an adult just to simply call the cops, just to simply report that she saw a kid in the streets. And that is enough to break social norms enough that Ko gets in very serious trouble. But it's not the trouble that Ko will receive from doing something he isn't allowed to do that is the problem. It's his loss of security. He believed the night had become his ally, that he had found the place he belonged, that he could find friends, find activities, relax, and stay away from everybody he wants to stay away from. He was safe. Until she said those words. That's how easy it is to break down a 14-year-old. Some people might say that that's nothing. He's just a kid. He has his whole life ahead of him. But it's simple acts like that from adults who want to show that they're better and in control than children. That is how society just slowly gets worse. It's as simple as that. It's a simple thing to do, but every moment that you restrict a child due to your own petty beliefs, you are narrowing what they believe is possible for the rest of their life. A minor incident to you could be the biggest moment of their entire life. And as far as you're concerned, you're gonna forget it in an hour. This is called being menacing while being indifferent. The maliciousness of indifference. That is the true horror of Call of the Night. Of realizing how insignificant you are in the face of an uncaring society. At this point in the show, it's hard to tell whether Anko is malicious was her intent, or simply using it as a tool to make Ko create an opening for the vampires that he already is aware of. But it doesn't change the fact that she abuses the little bit of trust and power she has over him for justifications that she would not even bother to go in depth into. The way she relished taunting him, and the way he reacted as he started to panic and understood the potential problems that were about to head his way, fundamentally felt cruel. A cruelty that only an adult is capable of inflicting on a teenager who lacks confidence and stability in his life. She may have had the best reasons to do what she did, but I don't think anybody would agree that she had any sort of moral high ground to justify what she did. Now, of course, there's the morality issue of whether a vampire is good or evil. This show has addressed that you need to drink blood to survive. But let's just, for argument's sake, say that what matters is a vampire gets freedom. And, you can say that it's irresponsible freedom, but it's better to have that freedom than be shackled to typical societal problems, I suppose you could say. I feel like I've been taking things a little bit too seriously as this whole video, so I do want to mention that the colors in this show are very obviously unique. The color scheme, the characters' animation styles differ drastically depending on whether they're a vampire, whether they're an adult. But in particular, I wanted to mention that the directing of the series, the camera angles, the amount of time that the show stays on each shot in some parts of this show really started giving me flashbacks. Very suspicious flashbacks. And lo and behold, the director of Call of the Night was also a heavy contributor and also director of the Monogatari series, or Bakemonogatari series, however you want to word that. He is literally more in control of the series than what I would say anybody else. He is probably one of my favorite directors, and it's just very funny that I just never noticed that he was such a large part of this show until just now. Because it was in particular some of these animations, head tilts, the head tilts in particular, I'll admit, were highly sus when it came to seeing some familiar imagery. And it's that animation in particular that makes the villain stand out so much. Basically, the director holds back on the insanity of some characters to emphasize just how normal the rest of the show is. You have the slice of life show that mostly has typical directing, and then you have the intense moments when it basically turns into Bakemonogatari, which helps emphasize those moments. Bakemonogatari, I think, is actually better because it keeps having those crazy camera angles and stuff all the time, but it's a very different show than Call of the Night. I say, even though the main character is very similar and in very similar situations, and they're involved in vampires. You know what? These two series might as well be the exact same series. Now that I think about it, they're very similar. Both main characters are just normal people who just happen to be walking at night one night, ran into a vampire, and are in the middle of a whole bunch of hijinks, basically. But I would definitely say Bakemonogatari made a lot more progress in its first season than Call of the Night did. That said, Call of the Night has quite a lot of potential from here on out, and I think that while I don't think that the villain should continue as they currently are, I think that there should be very different introductions of antagonists in the series, hopefully not vampires, but I would like to continue to see the adult element to the series, manipulating what the characters are doing. Because underneath a lot of the show's themes is the feeling that everything they're doing is specifically against Japanese norms. It's not even about the laws, really. It's about the norms. How dare you be awake at night? How dare you not want to do what other people want to do? That's the core of the show. The Call of the Night. It's the need to be different.